looks like the left doesn't really need to do much to prove that Senator Joe Manchin's claims of the possibility of bipartisanship are empty and shallow, because it turns out that the right wing is doing a pretty great job uncovering just how dumb and feckless he is when he makes those points.
One of my prayers is that the Republicans will take back their party.
Things keep dripping out, drip, 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 and the truth comes out.
The latest GOP senator to essentially disprove Manchin's claims that bipartisanship is possible is Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, this is on the topic of a voting rights bill. As some of you might already know, Manchin has come out against the For the People Act, which is a robust version of an election reform bill. It includes things like campaign finance reform, publicly funded elections, and of course, a number of other things that would expand voting rights to all eligible voters. Now, he has come out with his own slimmed down version of that does not include taking money out of politics. And the whole point is, well, maybe if I scale it back, right, as Manchin says, I can get Republican lawmakers to agree to vote in favor of it. Senator Lindsey Graham disagrees. Let's watch.
Manchin took out a lot of the basic Senate plans, S1, the For the People Act, like public financing of congressional elections. Can you go along with the Manchin stripped down version? And if not, why not?
Well, one, I like Joe Manchin a lot, but we had the largest turnout in the history of the United States, and states are in charge of voting in America. So I don't like the idea of taking the power to redistrict away from state legislators. You're having people move from blue states to red states. Under this proposal, you'd have some kind of commission redraw the new districts, and I don't like that. I want states where people are moving to have control over how to allocate new congressional seats. So as much as I like Joe Manchin, the answer would be no. In my view, SR1 is the biggest power grab in the history of the country. It mandates ballot harvesting, no voter ID. It does away with the states being able to redistrict when you have population shifts. It's just a bad idea, and it's a problem that most Republicans are not going to sign. They're trying to fix a problem most Republicans have a different view of.
So Senator Lindsey Graham utters what we already suspected. Republicans are not going to vote in favor of Manchin's bill, mostly because Republicans want to continue rigging the system to their advantage through gerrymandering, through a whole host of voter suppression provisions in state laws. They don't want to do away with that. They love that. And so it's just, we already know that Manchin is full of it. It's just honestly comical to see him get punched in the face by Republican lawmakers that he keeps referring to as his friends over and over again on cable television.
Yeah, what I'm super curious about is the end game here, because the For the People Act, at least half of it that has to do with voting rights, is pretty much a must pass for Democrats, because otherwise the Republicans are going to limit the number of people voting throughout all these states. They've already passed legislation in 14 different states to limit voting, and you're gonna be shocked to find out it's mainly Democratic voters they've limited voting in, and they've gerrymandered districts so badly that they wind up winning more seats than Democrats do in states, even though Democrats got more votes. Okay, in those same elections, we're not even talking about presidential elections or anything. Congressional elections, Democrats get more votes but less seats in a lot of the states because of the way that they have gerrymandered districts. So the Democratic Party would be committing suicide, political suicide, if they don't pass at least half of For the People Act. So now the question is the Democratic Party competent enough to pass the lowest bar, which is do not commit political suicide? Now, this is not about their voters. That, in my opinion, they barely care about them at all. This is about their own preservation.
Yes.
So like there's nothing that could be a better case for, can the Democratic leadership accomplish anything at all? Or are they the single most incompetent set of leaders this country has ever seen?
Bingo.
Right, so now I'm gonna give you the three options here. Of course, if you listen to the mainstream press, they're all master legislators and the greatest things on earth, even though they've almost never passed anything. Okay, so now, there's three different ways this can go. So Manchin says, I got this great compromise, and I told you, they're gonna vote on it, it's gonna get voted no. Are they gonna get 10 Republican senators to go along? let's not waste one more second discussing that. There's 0% chance of that. Okay, I will eat shorts, my shoes, whatever you need me to eat. There are not 10 Republican senators that are going to say, for the same exact reason, by the way. The Democrats must pass it because right now the Republicans have an unfair, undemocratic advantage across the country. And for the same exact reason, the Republicans won't pass it under penalty of law. Okay, it's obvious. Stop discussing it. All right, so what happens after they vote no? 3 possibilities. One is Manchin goes, oh, well, we gave it a shot, but no, I'm not ending the filibuster. In which case, Democratic leadership and even Stacey Abrams, et cetera, were foolish to negotiate with Manchin because it turns out Manchin never meant it and it was all one big giant joke on Democratic voters. Okay, now, second possibility is Manchin goes, oh, well, this is awfully frustrating. All right, you know what? I'm gonna bend on the filibuster. We're gonna bring it down from 60 to 55 votes that you need. And then in order to get the last 5 votes, this is really important. Then they're gonna go to Republicans and go, we'll take out the other anti-corruption measures. We already took out the small dollar matching funds, which would have helped people compete against you. We're gonna keep, and then on top of that, we'll cover up for your big donors and make sure nobody ever sees them. They'll gut more of the bill, and especially all of the anti-corruption parts, to try to get 5 Republican senators. Is that possible? Well, that's not impossible, but it's less likely, okay? And then the last option, Anna, is even that doesn't work. And then Manchin goes, well, look, I tried everything I could. So I guess now, since there's no Republicans moving ever on any bills, January 6th or this, fine, I vote to get rid of the filibuster. Let's pass this with 50 votes. And then at that point, it's still a 50-50 proposition because Kristen Sinema, it's possible that one of the other corporate Democrats, but Kristen Sinema is the biggest possibility, comes in and goes, no, I'm not gonna end the filibuster and you're not gonna get any of this. So it's not exactly hopeful right now. And I'm not sure that any DC reporter or even a lot of Democratic politicians understand that that's the dynamic at hand.
They're not gonna pass any bill. I think even if Manchin agrees to reform the filibuster, so you only need 55 votes rather than 60 in order to pass the legislation. It's still very, very likely, or unlikely, I should say, that Democrats will find 5 Republicans that will vote yes. Because remember, Republicans, of course, have an issue with the anti-corruption provisions in the bill. But they certainly have a bigger problem with the fact that this regulation or the regulations included in the bill would hinder their ability or the Republican Party's ability to skew elections to their advantage, right? They don't want to make it a free and fair electoral process. They hate that. So there's that. I don't know if Manchin will ever agree to doing away with the filibuster. Now, Lindsey Graham was asked about that. Let's play that video real quick and then we'll discuss the possibilities on that matter when we come back.
Do you run the risk that Manchin and a couple of other moderate senators will eventually say, look, bipartisanship isn't working, and you know what, we're not gonna kill the filibuster, but we're gonna reduce the number of votes you need to stop a debate from 60 to 55. Do you run that risk?
I hope not, because I was in Joe Manchin's shoes. I like Joe Manchin. I'm willing to work with him on infrastructure. We're very close on police reform. I'm not going to be extorted here. I'm asking no more of my Democratic colleagues than I ask of myself. It was very unpleasant to be beat on every day by the President of the United States, President Trump, and his allies to try to change the rules in the Senate to have their way. I said no because it's bad for the Senate. I hope these Democrats understand it's bad for the Senate to change the rules, and I don't want to be extorted. I've got to give 2 or 3 things before they will not change the rules. I don't like that at all. I didn't do that to them, and I wish they would not do this to me.
They didn't have to worry about the filibuster because they passed the Trump tax cuts through reconciliation, and that was all Republicans really wanted. They wanted more tax cuts for the wealthy, for corporations. Also, I mean, if any Democrat listens to that clip and thinks, oh yeah, I mean, look, the GOP, they're principled. They're principled. I mean, they're not hypocrites at all. It's not like they would do away with the filibuster if it was in any way beneficial for them if they were in our shoes. I mean, no one can buy what Lindsey Graham is selling there. We know they're hypocrites. We know that if the tables were turned and they had some sort of policy agenda that they needed to get done, they'd get it done. Republicans would get it done. If they need to nuke the filibuster to do it, they would do it. But look, they're not going to pass any type of election reform bill, period. They're not going to get any Republicans to sign on to it. I think what you bring up about Kyrsten Sinema is absolutely correct. I think that she's gonna serve as an obstacle to this, and she has no problem with how it affects her standing in polls. I mean, after she voted down a $15 an hour minimum wage, she remained defiant about it, even though it hurt her among her own constituents.
Well, actually, it hurt her so much, both among her constituents and the Democratic Party in Arizona, that it feels like she's acting like she has nothing left to lose in the Democratic Party, so she might flip to Republican or Independent. When I suggest that, I know people go, "Oh no, Sinema would never do that." Even good folks, smart folks who cover this, no, you're wrong. She would do that. And that's a very, very real possibility. And she's shown every indication she's headed in that direction based on her votes, non-votes, etc. So now I gotta tidy up a couple of things. First of all, when Lindsey Graham says, well, look, I'll vote with things for Manchin. We could vote on the infrastructure bill. Yeah, that's the Republican version of the infrastructure bill. So yes, you'll vote yes on your own bill that does nothing. And police reform. Oh, we're waiting on Lindsey Graham to do meaningful police reform in this country? You must be joking. The only thing that Lindsey Graham is going to propose is something that helps cops, and there's no way he would do real reform. I'm moving on. Those are jokes. And understand that as they go through this 60, 55, 50, all of this kabuki theater, they're running out the clock, because it's the For the People Act is a political issue, but the policy issues is where the rubber hits the road, because that's where the Chamber of Commerce steps in and goes, no, I don't want you voting on $15 minimum wage. I don't want you voting on all these economic issues. So the more time they spend trying to get the bare minimum with the For the People Act, the less time they're gonna have for economic issues, and hence the donors are thrilled with how this is going. And of course, to Anna's point, he says, oh my gosh, golly gee, we'd never change the filibuster, except the minute it was convenient, you changed it for the Supreme Court.
Right.
And you said, oh, we don't need the filibuster anymore. You Democrats are suckers, idiots. We took it away as soon as it was to our advantage. Now the Supreme Court's 6-3, morons. And then they come out and they go, oh, we would never, golly gee, we would never touch a filibuster if it was to our advantage. Okay, by the way, the only reason they didn't want to pass some of the laws that Trump talked about is because the Chamber of Commerce didn't want them. And so that's why they're like, yeah, keep the filibuster, right?
Right.
So, and then finally, look, in order to get the 5 Republican votes, so why on God's green earth is that even in, why am I saying that's not a 0% chance they get 5 Republican votes? Because of what Chris Wallace asked. So at some point, the Democrats are going to say, well, we can't get a single Republican vote on a single policy issue, so we have left no choice but to get rid of the filibuster. If the Republicans were smart, what they would do is they would blunt that by voting for a quarter of For the People Act. So they'd not only get rid of all the anti-corruption measures, including the Disclosure Act, as I told you earlier, but they could also get rid of the gerrymandering provisions and only leave the provision that says, yes, you're allowed to vote, okay? And in which case, they might get 5 Republican senators and then keep the filibuster, which allows them to block all progressive policy positions. So if the Republicans were smart, that's what they would do, right? But Republicans over the last 10 years at least have been driven by infinite greed, so they might not even do that. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.